Welcome back to the CTB show, week 5, episode 5 of the podcast. Thomas Pachernik and Christian Catenacci, as always. Cat, what's going on? We got our first snowfall of the season here in Toronto.
It's snowing out there for sure.
First snow game yesterday too. They had it out in Lambeau, not bad.
And you know what else is the first time? Even though you said on the last episode that we might never get it all year, the first victory week.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about bringing that up too today.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, so it's the first time for everything. You jinxed it into the future. By
I said Miami's going to run the table. I'm still putting it out there.
They're 1-0 since that claim. So,
and it's looking. I don't know if you've seen our schedule, but it's looking at least. I'm not going to say they're going to do it. It's looking favorable that you know what we might be in the mix there, but that's not what today's about. Like we said, first snowfall. That means that November's here, December's right around the corner. These games are going to start to get even more and more important. But before we get into anything that happened last week, or this did happen last week, I want to give you some credit. You predicted a tie yesterday.
I did, and I lost my survivor pool because of it. But I had a weird feeling. I know people are saying that I threw a dart on the table, but look, I was looking at the slate of games yesterday, and I just had some weird feeling. I was like, there was a few weird games that stuck out. This game, surprisingly, wasn't even the game that I was talking about. I predict obviously, it's hard to predict individual games, so I said it more in a broad way. But I thought the game that gave me the idea was that Denver and Philadelphia game.
That's what I figured you were going to say,
right?
Honestly. Yeah.
That was such a weird game. I was looking at it, I'm like, right? Like, I'm like, Denver, they're not a great team. So, I don't know how they'll deal with, because that was probably the biggest win in recent years, the week before, for that franchise. So, I'm like, how are these guys going to deal with success? Then they're playing another NFC East team. I was like, you know what? Like, they could have some weird result here. So, that's where I threw it out for that game. And then it turns out that, obviously, the game that I had to pick in Survivor, or Big Ben goes out Saturday night, test positive for COVID. I'm like, what am I going to do? I couldn't change my pick.
Yeah.
And then, it was, look, I've had my fair share of good predictions this year, but that's definitely at the top right now. For sure at the top. I need an award, I think. I need some award, right? I'm just talking to a wall here, and there's nobody cheering for me.
Hey, at least I gave you a little bit of credit.
Yeah, you did. Got some airtime there.
But you mentioned your survivor pool. You're out. I think a lot of people in the past, not even this week, but the week before, just the NFL in general has been like an absolute madness. In the last 2 weeks, teams that were that were at least +7 or more, so 7-point underdogs, have won outright 5 times. And in this week, it started again with the Washington football team upsetting Tom Brady. Taylor Heineke finally gets the best of Brady after their lengthy duels in Taylor Heineke's career. He kind of burst onto the scene last year because of that game. But, the Bucs get upset. Or the Ravens, of course, on Thursday Night Football.
Started with that, really.
Like, the NFL's just been unbelievable the past 2 weeks. And the teams that were upset a week ago, mainly the Bills and your Cowboys, bounced back in a big, big way. So it's just been a lot going on, craziness, and it shows you never know what to expect.
I love it too. It's like the movie Any Given Sunday, baby. It's perfect. Like it's such a good and fitting line for how the season's gone, especially the past 3 weeks. But I was joking around. So I was talking to my buddies, and one of my guys was saying, "Oh, this Tyler Heineke guy is kind of good." But he's like, he doesn't watch too much football. He's not like a crazy avid fan. So I was joking around. I said, yeah, if you watch Heineke against the Bucs, you think he's a top 10 quarterback, right? Because that's the only TV somewhat looks competent like. But I know, like, that was a game that I think nobody saw coming. Like, if you look at the panel picks, I think that's a good way to judge, because there's like 8 to 10 people that pick games when they're doing their pregame show. You look back, much like the Jags last week, but even some I saw when the Cowboys played the Bucs, the Broncos last week. We had like 2 or 3 people that were on the Broncos, and then same with that Ravens game on Thursday. I personally said the Dolphins were going to win. I bet the Dolphins. So from my perspective, I can say that I was completely blindsided. But that Bucks game, I don't think a single person saw that coming. Like, not off the bye. Like, what is Brady, right? Like,
we talked about it last week. The Bucks off of bye last year, they ran the table. I think if you add up the total games, I think it was 8-0, maybe 9-0 to go on to win the Super Bowl. They were 7-5. They were sort of struggling early. They had some tough games. They didn't look great. The Saints blew them out, I think twice. Or if they didn't blow them out twice, they blew them out once, and they beat them another time. Once. They beat them in week 1, and then on Sunday Night Football, they absolutely mopped the floor with them.
Yeah, they destroyed them.
So it didn't really look that great for the Bucks. Then they had this bye. They got to sort of regroup. And after that, yes, they had some favorable games, but they ran the table, and that's sort of where they found their identity a year ago. This year, coming off bye, we sort of think, not that they've struggled early, but we sort of think the same thing's going to happen. Brady gets a week off. That whole team gets to rest a little bit. They've been banged up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You're at home. You're a 9-point favorite. And really, I don't think anyone's really a threat for them in that division. But we're going to look back at this loss come January when they're a game behind the Cowboys, the Packers, either the Cardinals or the Rams. And they're, the 4 seed in the NFC? Like, this is a costly loss for a team that, let's be honest, they won as a wild card a year ago, but I think the NFC is a lot better this year where home field advantage might mean a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I think you're starting to see that as we get deeper into the season, that this year more than ever, because, if you look at the top teams, you can make an argument for the top 5 teams. I'm going to throw the Bucks in there still because I do believe that they'll end up in that conversation despite the little mix-up this week. But there's 5 teams that you can genuinely make an argument for that could sort of run and make that push to get to the Super Bowl. Yeah. There's 5, right, in the NFC. And they're legitimate arguments. Like, it's not like, oh, you're goofy. Like, you're what the hell, like, right? It's not like a fan just claiming, right? Any given, you don't even have to be a fan, can say, look, there's those 5 teams, you can make 3 strong points as to why that team's going to get to the Super Bowl. The Bucks are included. So that now more than ever, that home field is super, super important, especially now there's only that one team that gets that bye, right? Because there's 7 playoff teams. And that 4 seed could very well play the Rams.
Or Rams or the Cardinals.
In the first week. Like, nobody wants to be that 4 seed, right? Like, that's a tough game to be. Obviously, you still get that home field, but for that game, I should say. But, like,
you want to play the Rams or the Cardinals in the NFC Championship.
You don't want to play them the first week, right? Like, so, I mean, I know there's still X amount of weeks left. There's still six weeks left. 7, right? 7 weeks left. Whatever it is.
Week 10?
Yeah, week 10. But, like, now it's you don't want to say that, like, you're heading into, like, must-win weeks. But when it looks like when teams are that hot, when you look at the top teams in the NFC, it's almost like you can't have these mix-ups. Like, you can't afford to lose a game, especially against another NFC opponent. Even if that NFC opponent is Washington, you can't afford to lose those games because that 1 seed is just ever so much more important this year, given the strength of those teams at the top of the conference.
And I think what I saw from the teams that were, the top teams that were so bad last week, I saw them bounce back this week. So, no, I'm not concerned about the Bucks long-term by any means. Like, they'll get their act together. But it is the fact that, like,
yes,
you don't want to slip up now. Is that their 3rd loss of the season?
3rd loss.
And, the Cowboys, the Rams, the Cardinals now, they're all at 2 losses. The Packers as well. Packers are the number 1 seed in the NFC. Didn't do them much last year. They didn't manage to go to the Super Bowl with that. But it's a different year, and
it is.
And it's very, very important. You want to be you want to have every single advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter if you're good. Oh, we don't need it. You'd rather have it.
Yes,
you'd rather play at home.
Absolutely. It's not that these teams need it because they can all beat each other at any given point. Like, regardless of where the game is, it's still going to be, if you look at the spread, it's going to be like a 1 or 2 point game regardless. Obviously, it'll favor the home team, but it comes down to that. You want, in those games where the teams are so evenly matched, like they're on the same level, you want any advantages you could possibly get. And home field is arguably the biggest one that you could have. So, I mean, there's no doubt about that. The most important, like those top teams in the NFC, they got to be looking, you know what, week in, week out, like we got to win every single game that we possibly can. There's no room for slip-ups anymore. The Bucs had their one slip-up. The Cowboys had their slip-up. The Packers had their slip-up. It seems like they've all had their slip-ups, but look, there's not much room for many more of those, because I think we're starting to realize that top NFC seed will have maybe 3-4 losses max, right? So gives those room for error for the Bucs. I don't know. Not much left.
So you said in the NFC, there's about 5 teams, and I'd agree with that. Honestly, going into the season, a couple of teams like the Seahawks and the 49ers, we thought that they might have been in there. It hasn't exactly gone to plan. But there's 5 teams that you legitimately could see hoisting that Lombardi trophy. The AFC side of the ball, last week we talked about how one of these teams needs to show us something because it wasn't looking good. Well, like as we said before, the Bills, they did have a bounce back week, but that's not who we're talking about today. And this is where I gave you credit earlier for predicting a tie. This is where I'm going to boast and hype myself up. I'm not going to say I never gave up on these guys.
No, you didn't ever give up.
You know what? I never gave up on them. I never gave up. There's maybe a handful of people, Patrick Mahomes' mother and myself, that believed that the Chiefs...
And his wife. That's it.
I don't know. No, I don't even... She's... The wife and his brother are far too focused on TikToks and other things during the game. Patrick Mahomes' mother and myself. That's it. That's where the list ends. And each week I said, it's getting hard. I admit it. I said, it's getting very difficult, but I'm not giving up on this team. Last night, Sunday Night Football, 35 of 50, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's still the best quarterback in the league. He's still the best player in the league. How about that from Patrick Mahomes?
He had so many touchdowns, we ran out of edits.
We did.
We ran out of edits.
I was even digging into old ones that were used before. There's a little secret.
Yeah.
What a performance. And this is coming off like the Raiders generally give them a very tough game. They beat them once last year, and they took them down to the final drive in that exact same game. I don't know if it was Sunday night or Monday Night Football in Vegas a year ago. So I was going in thinking we're in for a good one. I was a little bit nervous on how the Chiefs were going to perform, given they haven't exactly been all that hot as of late. It feels weird to say that they've won 3 in a row because their last 2 wins didn't really feel like wins. That felt like a win.
Yes.
That's what we've come to expect from the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know the bar is always higher for them, but...
Deservedly so, though. It should be high.
Yes. That was the Chiefs team that we expected going into this year.
Absolutely. And I did get sort of flashbacks when I was watching that game yesterday. I was like, this is sort of the Chiefs team that we've grown accustomed to over the past 2 years. And it's so funny because last week on the episode, I sold my Chiefs.
You did. Sold at the wrong time.
I sold them. Now I look at my portfolio this week. I'm checking the stock. It's up $10 and I'm looking like, oh, you're sold at a $1,000 loss here. But no, all jokes aside, I think it's a good one. I think the Chiefs being good and Patrick Mahomes being on his game is very good for the NFL. Obviously, like Pac said, Mahomes, when he's on, it's hard to debate. Maybe you could debate 1 or 2 other quarterbacks to sort of be on that level, but it's not a bold statement saying that he is the best quarterback or even the best player in the league when he's on his game. And he absolutely was on his game last night. Like, he was near perfect. I hate saying perfect because it's such a prestigious term, and it's like, oh, he did have 1 or 2 bad passes. But like, look, guys, Patrick Mahomes, even those 2 wins, you talked about it. Those 2 wins, they were averaging 12 points per game in those 2 wins heading into this week.
Yeah.
12 points per game. That's 28th in the league. Yet they were 2-0, right? So this game was so important, not only because it was a divisional rival, and now they're sitting pretty for that divisional. Like, they're in first place in the division. They have that big win. Like, that was a big win for regardless of who was going to come on top. But look, they looked to be back. They were playing with confidence. They were sort of using the run game a little bit more. Damian Williams was incredible.
Daryl
Williams. That's right. Yeah. Damian Williams on the Bears.
Yeah.
Daryl Williams was incredible last night. Tyreek Hill, that connection was incredible. Even Kelsey had a sneaky good game too, and he could have had
a lot of yards.
He could have had an even bigger game. He dropped a few passes. I don't want to say maybe 2 passes that could equate to some chunk plays, but that was convincing on the road. And I know people I like reading our comments because everyone always downplays the other team when it comes to a team that they don't like, right? So the Chiefs win, and then they start to downplay the Raiders. But like the Raiders it's not like they're a bad team.
They're a little inconsistent at times. And I'm not going to say I told you so, because this year the circumstances are a little different given everything that they've gone through.
Correct.
But I told you so. I was waiting for this collapse. I was waiting for the mid-season collapse when they started 3-0. I said, listen, I like them, but show me when you can win when there's snow outside.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that yesterday.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs, I don't expect this from them every week. And I do think that maybe, you said there's 10 weeks left of the season. We'll probably see, 8 weeks left of the season. We'll probably see them struggle. You can't expect this, as you said, perfection every single week. But I think what was so nice about this is that they showed me that they still have it in the tool chest. Yes. And it's on prime time. It's a big game. A couple weeks ago, I expected this performance against the Giants on Monday Night Football. Mm-hmm. Because, again, like I said, home game, prime time, all the attention's on you. And that was one of the most worrisome performances out of everything. I know they ended up winning the game, but I just watched and I said, like, this is the team that we thought was going to become, a dynasty. No. So it was great to see that from them. They still have, they're not a shoe-in for the division by any means. They still have some tough games. They still got to play the Chargers again, who they lost to.
Yeah.
So 1 week at a time, build on this, keep it going. We saw, though, that Mahomes, he struggled this year, especially with turnovers. He kept the ball in his team's hands.
Yes.
And there was no stopping him yesterday.
And that I think that was the most important thing to take away from that game yesterday, was the fact that Mahomes was back playing with confidence, I mentioned before. And I saw Al Michaels made a joke on air yesterday. He said that this is the first press conference all year that Mahomes is looking forward to, right? Because he was, even in their wins, they were ugly wins, right? So it looks like they got back on track. And the most impressive part of the game last night wasn't even on the field. It was a stat that they showed towards the end of the game. Patrick Mahomes is 11-0 on the road. 11-0
in primetime or in his division,
no, 11-0 on the road. Watch, I pulled it up here. So he is 11-0. Watch this. It was crazy. When I saw this, I was like, "There's no way this is true." Road division games. He's 11-0. 11-0 on the road in division. That's I knew I was missing something there. But that's crazy impressive.
I mean, at home he's probably 12-2.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. On the road. Yeah.
I know the division hasn't been crazy since he stepped in. This is sort of the Chargers seem to be emerging now. They've been sort of lackluster since he got in. Same with the Broncos. The Broncos have always been.
Denver's still a tough place to play.
Yeah, they are still tough.
Every year you feel they're going to drop a game. When we look at those preseason projections that come out, people always say okay, they're a great team, but 6-0 in the division is pretty hard. They'll probably go 5-1, and often a loss at Denver is what people will throw out because you have those bad weeks, and it's, I don't know. To me, whenever I see looking at games every week, I see a home game in Denver. I just don't want to touch it. There's something about I don't know if it's the whole altitude thing, but it just scares me. I'm like, I don't want to touch this.
It's true. If you ask my dad, my dad went to a Cowboy game a few years back. I say a few years, maybe over 10 years ago. And he was sitting in the nosebleeds
in Denver.
And he was walking up to the nosebleeds, and his buddy was gonna pass out. He was literally about to pass out because you were so high up, and plus the altitude, it was crazy. So you could only imagine that, especially younger teams, guys that haven't been into the league for a while, and you have rookies that have never played in an atmosphere like that. It's tough, right? And it's so common. And I know myself when I'm making those preseason predictions, I won't lie. I'm sort of like those shoe-in games. I'll always say like, oh, you know what? There's no way. I look at that record. I'm like, that's too good of a record for this team.
Yeah.
So like you need to find a loss somewhere. And
every team has those
right?
weeks,
exactly.
100%.
So like you give it to like, oh, they're in Denver. Use the altitude. Let's get rid of it there. But nonetheless, it's so impressive. 11-0 on road divisional games. That's like honestly like almost unheard of because it's very hard to win your division. It's very hard to go 6-0 in your division every single year because of how important home field advantage is in the NFL. And I took that away as the most impressive part because I know I sold my stock last week, but I was sort of still I was sort of waiting for the Chiefs to like say like, you know what, we're still here. And got my Cowboys next week.
That's a tough game.
It's going to be a good game. 425
in Dallas,
in KC.
in KC.
Yeah,
that's something to look forward to. And another like I mentioned KC's schedule. They showed it a couple weeks ago when they were really struggling.
Tough schedule.
And it's probably the hardest schedule in the NFL.
Tough schedule.
So they're probably getting hot at the perfect time because they're in for a tough month ahead. But hey, like we said, the AFC, it's a little bit of a different story from the NFC. I know that they didn't have a great start, but it's still so wide open, and they still have enough time to make up.
Open. It is wide open, way more wide open, at least at the top than the NFC. There's a few teams in the AFC that are sitting at the top right now that you have sort of your question marks about. As comparison to the NFC, there's only those top 5 teams that you really know that they're going to be there at the end of the year.
Yeah, the AFC is wide open, and one team that's sort of emerging. I wouldn't even know if emerging is the right word because they've been hot for a while now, and they seem to be getting better and better every week. And honestly, as a Dolphins fan, it's one of the worst things in the world. I couldn't have asked for anything worse than this because this organization just won't go away. And that's the New England Patriots. Like, are they back? Are they going to win the AFC East? Like, what's going on? They demolished
the Browns.
Demolished Cleveland, who we thought all of a sudden was a good team because they just blew out the Bengals.
Yep. And no, okay, they are a good team. Let's not get this. Like the Browns are a good team. Like I know they've battled their injuries and they've had their sort of. They had the whole Odell saga and Baker's battling that shoulder problem. But let's get one thing straight. When you beat a team 41-7, a team like the Browns, who are, if you look at their roster, I know they have a few injuries. They're missing Kareem Hunt. They no longer have Odell Beckham. But like that was a team before the year that people looked at that roster and said, this might be the best roster in the league. Mm-hmm. And Mac Jones, the Brady-esque little rookie there that's just sitting on the sidelines with the pad. He's looking at the pad like this, just dialed in. He throws 3 touchdowns. The game's 41-7. The guy's still looking at the pad. He's just dialed
how
in.
Mad was he that they took him out? He was probably... He probably didn't know why they took him out.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think he looks at the scoreboard.
No, he doesn't. I don't even think he knew the score. He probably just he's like a programmed robot. I don't know what Bill's feeding him in the morning. He's probably got the code in his brain, and he just got an instant microchip, and he's just controlling him how he wants. But man, what an impressive performance from Mac Jones. And I know we were saying we were talking about earlier how like. You know what I mean? Offensive Rookie of the Year is probably like Jamar Chase going to run with it.
And it is. I want to clear that up. I know Jamar Chase was on bye this week, and everyone forgot who he was.
Exactly.
There's still no like Jamar Chase is that guy.
Right now, absolutely. We're not saying that he isn't that guy, but I'm saying like look, Mac Jones keeps this up. Like we're going to have a very, very interesting Offensive Rookie of the Year debate because of the fact, look, like, okay. Yesterday, that was another game that I just didn't see coming. I know Vegas had them favored by 2.5 points, right? The Patriots were favored by 2.5 points. But that was like a game too. That was one of those people were like, I guarantee you a lot of public money was on the Browns.
Browns 2.5 in my parlay,
right? Like
and on the podcast, the From the Nose. Yeah, disaster.
Exactly, right? And the fact that they went in, like they not went in because they were playing in Foxborough, but still 41-7. That was impressive from Jones. And I know that you had your fair share of bad talk about Mac Jones before the.
Did I?
Yeah,
I don't
in the draft.
so.
In the draft, you were bashing him. Yes, you were.
No. I'm on record, and you can go back. I'm on record saying
the receipts.
If Mac Jones goes to the Patriots, he will succeed.
Okay, maybe you said that.
I was not buying the number 3 at San Fran talk, but I was scared when the Patriots took him, and I saw him walk out onto that stage. I said, "Oh boy, this guy is going to be something in New England." And maybe I laughed a little bit when he was touted a little higher than I thought he was or he deserved to be. Yeah, you can criticize me for that, but I did think it was a great fit in New England. And listen, Mac Jones, he doesn't look like a rookie. He can make all the throws. He has an incredibly soft touch and phenomenal placement. So many of these lobs to Hunter Henry is like right in his arms, and it's just like a nice flick. It looks effortless. They're not asking him to do, a Patrick Mahomes type role, but everything that's being asked of him, he is executing it to perfection. And I think going forward, he can grow and grow every year into this great quarterback. And he already feels like a veteran up here, which is by far the most important element for a quarterback to have. But I also, we can't talk about the Patriots without going back to Bill Belichick, because I think everyone forgot what a great coach he was, because last year Tom Brady won a Super Bowl without him. Do you remember on Sunday Night Football against the Colts, I don't know if it's Jonas Gray, running back for the Patriots. Do you remember that performance? I think he had 36 rushing attempts, 199 yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns, running back for the Patriots. It was probably like 5 or 6 years ago now. It was against Andrew Luck.
It sounds, yes, I do remember that.
So you remember that performance?
Yes.
The next day he showed up to practice late, and they cut him.
I do remember that. Holy.
Okay. So the Patriots, that is what they are. Yesterday, Damian Harris, who's been a machine the whole year, he's out. Who do they turn to? I hope I pronounced this right. Ramondre Stevenson. 20 attempts, over 100 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Patriots have one of the best offensive lines in the league. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They can run it down your throat. And Mac Jones, he's not asked to do a whole lot, but everything that they ask him to do, wow, does he do a phenomenal job at it.
Exactly. And I like how you mentioned the running game part, because that's Mac Jones aside. I'm talking about more Patriots here. I always like to, my indicator for, one of my many indicators for a very good team is how do they run the ball. And the Patriots run, they are very, very good at running the football. And you mentioned how they have so many mouths that they could give the ball to, even Brandon Bolden that comes out of nowhere sometimes. And I know they even lost James White too, right? So the fact that they're still running the ball with efficiency and they're able to sort of keep possession, that's a sign of a very good team. And you got to give credit to Bill Belichick, because I think he is putting Mac Jones in the best position to succeed when you compare him to other rookie quarterbacks, right? He's making Mac Jones, he's trying to simplify things for him, and he's putting him in favorable situations. I know the defense you got to give that defense a round of applause too, because Matt Judon is so good, right?
He's unbelievable.
Right, and he was good in Baltimore.
And I think he's better because he wears those red sleeves and he just pops off your screen. And so every play, you can't miss him. He does something incredible.
He is so good. And I know he was good in Baltimore, and he was always that sort of force off the edge. But guys, he looks like a completely different player, and that's saying a lot, because he had 8.5 sacks in Baltimore a year ago, and he's already over that tally now in New England, and he is just like you said. I don't know if it might be those red sleeves, because it's hard to not see him. But every single play, it looks like this guy's in the backfield creating havoc. And I made the bold prediction on our Instagram page a few days ago, and I said I think the Patriots could win this division. I really do. I know they still got to play the Bills twice.
Play them twice, yeah.
They got to play them twice, and that's big. I know the Bills are just coming off a big win, a bounce back win against the Jets. So I'm not trying to knock them at all, but it's more just to show you how legitimate this Patriots team is. And you just look, just a year ago, people were saying, like you mentioned, oh, Bill Belichick's nothing without Brady. Oh, the Patriots, they're going to be in this long rebuild, and they're going to be relevant in 5 years, and Brady's going to be in Tampa Bay winning all these Super Bowls. I think Bill heard that. I don't know what sort of phone this guy's got.
He's probably got
Nokia. I don't know if he's got Twitter on his Nokia, but he heard that. He took it to heart, and he said, you know what? You saw him at the draft. You saw him the past 2 years. He was sitting at his computer. With his dog. Right? I think that dog must have, if that dog could talk, he probably has a ton of stories to tell.
Yeah.
Right? Because who's got stories about Bill? Nobody. That dog
not even
has
his
all
son.
of them. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? So, look, this Patriots team looks legit, and I have been having so much fun watching it because it's so funny. I just watch Mac Jones, and it's not even because he wows me on the field. It's just everything else, right? Yeah. He walks the sidelines, just the way he carries himself, his persona. It's like this guy literally looks like this is his 7th year in the league, but it's he's got 10 career starts.
It's impressive.
Very impressive.
And they got a chance to, not that they haven't shown the NFL world what they can do yet, but they got a chance to do that even more because they play primetime this week, Thursday Night Football. Another pretty favorable matchup. Falcons, they got blown out by your Cowboys this week. The defense is definitely not one of the better units in the NFL. So another opportunity for the Patriots to further build on what they're already doing. And that's, to me right now, the goal should be push to win the NFC or push to win the AFC East, because I think they have a real good shot, and they got 2 games left against the Bills, which are going to be very, very telling of what they can do going forward this year.
I love it. I'm all in. My cheese stock that I sold, I threw it in the Patriots. I bought them low.
I'll give you one last trader tip. Throw it into the Dolphins too, because we're a second half team in the season, and we're going up. We're going right up with. It's going to be us, the Bills, and the Patriots vying for that last spot in Week 18. Talking about another stock that you could have purchased at a cutthroat price, just 3 weeks ago, even 2 guys, and that's Cam Newton and Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, Odell we've talked about a lot, especially last week. We talked about where he would go. I said we're probably going to both be way off, which we were. Rams came out of nowhere, to be fair. That was completely unexpected. And Cam Newton, that also kind of came out of nowhere. And that news was also overshadowed because the news came out, oh, Cam's coming back. Two hours later, Odell's going to the Rams. Everyone forgot about Cam. Yeah. But he made sure everyone remembered him yesterday with his I'm back celebration. First 2 plays, 2 touchdowns. They really only used him in the red zone. But Carolina demolished Arizona. I know they didn't have Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, but they still looked good at least a week ago.
Convincing.
Very, very strong game from Carolina. Christian McCaffrey's back. We all know how much better their record is with him.
Yes.
We'll get to Odell in a second, but I want to quickly talk about Cam first. Does this Panthers team have any hopes for the playoffs? We know the Bucs are in that division. That's out of the question. We're not going to be foolish and talk about that, but at least a wild card spot. Because my takeaway from the NFC, I know it's top heavy, but after those 5 teams, I think there's a massive drop off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I honestly think, not this bad is a strong word, but I think a team that is maybe not so hot is going to be playing in the playoffs.
Absolutely, and that's also why it's so important for those top teams to get as high of a seed as they can, because that 7th seed could be a Carolina, it could be in Atlanta, right? It could even be the Eagles are hot, right? It could get a little bit fun when it comes to that sort of last. The Vikings, there's a lot of teams that are in that, and the Panthers are one of them. And I want to set the record straight with this whole Cam Newton thing before we keep going. I think Carolina is going to be a sort of at that playoff. They'll be in the playoff picture. I don't know if they'll emerge as that 7th seed in the wild card, but I will say this: it'll be a factor of many things. McCaffrey is we saw, like you said, we saw how much better of an offense, how much more complete of an offense when he's touching the ball, and he touched the ball a lot last night or yesterday afternoon, and he was efficient. They gave him the ball in the backfield and they threw it to him. He looked like the McCaffrey that we've grown so fond of in the past years. They're a very well coached team. Matt Rule is a very, very, very good head coach, and it's impressive to see what he's done in such short time since making that jump from Baylor. And this Cam Newton signing. And it's not because Cam Newton is this elite level quarterback. I think it's more of a locker room thing. And we saw, and sort of a fan base thing. And we saw the reaction of Carolina Panthers fans and even people in their locker room. Like, I've never seen Robbie Anderson smile in my life. Never.
Maybe when
life.
he met Sir Purr, that's it.
It's
But
Sir
after
Purr,
that,
that's it. I've never seen him smile in my life. And yesterday he did a post-game press conference with Cam, and the guy looked like he was having the time of his life. So I think that's being overlooked from Cam's 2 touchdowns. I know he only played a handful of plays, but this locker room and this fan base might be able to build some momentum off this and sort of say, look, we got Cam back now. And we all know that Cam in 2015, 2016, that super Cam era in Carolina was exciting to watch. Cam was one of those quarterbacks that, like, he was must-watch TV every single week. And I think that reunion is important because I don't even know if they plan to use him as a starting quarterback. I really don't. Yeah. Because, like, look, if you use him and P.J. Walker together, I know P.J. Walker struggled a little bit yesterday despite even them demolishing the Cardinals. You could use Cam in on the goal line and in set packages that could work. And I think Cam's fine with that because, like, look, he played 2 plays yesterday. I know he scored, so it's we've grown. We've seen Cam off wins and Cam off losses, right? It's 2 different guys, but if you get Cam in favorable matchups and let him use his size and his athleticism, Carolina can make this work.
Yeah, I like the idea of the sort of 2 quarterback tandem, and I think it's probably that's probably the way to honestly get the best out of Cam because, let's be honest, he does have his drawbacks,
of course,
especially throwing the ball. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the money that they gave him, I don't really know if that's going to happen. They're paying him
$4.5 million
guaranteed, and they could go up to $10 million. So I think it's safe to say that if they're paying him that much, he's probably going to be the every down quarterback. Yeah. But he definitely, I really like what you said about that because he brings an excitement to the organization who has had an incredibly up and down year. They start off 3-0, and honestly, out of all the teams that were 3-0, I was never really saying that the Panthers were pretenders. I was more so giving that tag to the Raiders and the Broncos. But the Panthers are probably, is it bad to say that maybe they're the worst team out of those 3? I think them and the Broncos would be a pretty tough match and probably a bit of a snooze fest at the same time. But at their worst, the Panthers have looked like a disaster this year.
Yeah.
So they're in a situation now where they sort of have an excuse because Darnold unfortunately went to the IR. And I read yesterday that they're even planning on him potentially missing the rest of the season. So they had an excuse to just take a shot.
Yeah.
And I think Cam Newton, it's a reunion. It's fun. It's definitely giving them a bit of a surge.
Absolutely.
And I think over the course of an 18-week season, it's probably the worst time to play the Panthers if you're playing them right now.
Yeah. And I think that's look, and it comes down to the fact that it seems like they've had a rebirth as a franchise. It was like their Super Bowl, right? Like the Panthers signed Cam Newton, and if you just took Cam Newton's name away and just looked at his stats past couple of years, you would be like, oh, like this guy's just a whatever. You probably wouldn't even bat an eye to the signing. But I think that's what makes this signing so unique and so important because it gives that franchise that glimmer of hope as to maybe, you know what, maybe this guy can come and save us again and be that quarterback or even half the quarterback he once was. Will he be that? I don't know. I think it's premature to make any claim right now just because we've seen so little of him. And that game against Arizona was just... It was a weird game from all angles because they didn't even play good. Like Carolina didn't play.
Oh, come on! You got to give them some credit.
No, absolutely. I'm saying they smacked them, but like, if I don't know, I wasn't like you. I wasn't watching the game and I was like, wow, like they just look amazing, like they're back, blah, blah, blah. Like, they look good, but it was like a weird win because, like, the score indicates that they blew them out.
A couple turnovers happened early that immediately changed the total game
right?
script. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So then the game sort of got dull towards the end, right? Like, it sort of just became like one of those, like, this game's over, sort of thing. So maybe that's why, maybe that's playing into my claim. I'm not saying that Carolina didn't have I'm not saying that they were horrible. They obviously clearly played well enough to destroy the Cardinals, but I think it was more of the fact that the Cardinals just didn't have their game, and who knows? It's all hearsay. Hindsight's 20/20. But I really do think that that Carolina could sort of get momentum if they start winning the next couple of weeks. We'll look back at this Cam signing and say, you know what? Like, look, Cam's no top 15 quarterback, top 20 quarterback. I don't even know if he is, but it's just the fact that it brings so much momentum to the fan base and to that locker room, that this could be one of those signings that we look back and maybe Carolina's weeks into the playoffs, and I don't expect them to do anything with that. But like you mentioned, that sort of 7 seed is wide open.
Yeah, it's wide open.
There's a handful of teams, right? There's a handful of teams that go in, and Carolina's, you can't not say that Carolina is one of them, right? Like, they have to be.
Personally, I think it's the Vikings to lose.
Yes.
But they just continue to shoot themselves in the foot week in and week out. Like, right when we think that they're a good team, like, for example, yesterday, they beat a good Chargers team on the road. So it's like, okay, these guys can definitely play.
Yeah.
Next week they'll go, and I don't know who they play, but they'll probably either win in unconvincing fashion or just flat out lose, can't move the ball. So I don't know. I do think that they're probably better than their record even suggests, but you never know what to expect with those Vikings. But anyway, Cam debut. I know he barely even played, but that's a home run of a return just because of the result and the energy and everything that goes with it.
Absolutely.
Of course, Odell, he hasn't played yet this week because we record these Monday mornings. So even when this is out, he still wouldn't have even played. So this is where the projection point comes in. I know you're not the biggest Odell fan. I know you're lauding Cam for giving this boost to the organization, and I think with what we saw with Odell in Cleveland, it was anything but a boost that he gave them. But he's with the Rams now. It's exciting. It's a great quarterback. Unfortunately, Robert Woods tore his ACL. He's up for the season, so there's now not only excitement, there's opportunity for Odell there, more so than when he even signed that contract.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just go quickly. Stat line for Odell Beckham Jr. tonight. Divisional game versus the 49ers. It's a big game for these Rams on the road as well. McVay's had some problems with Shanahan in the past too, so let's
I think
hear
it's
it.
being overlooked. I do think it's being overlooked. I will say this before I get to my stat line prediction. This is the season for the 49ers.
Oh, like tonight's game. Yeah,
Yes.
if they lose this, they're
out.
3-6.
They're
yeah,
done.
good luck.
The season's over, right? And this is anything but the quote unquote season or a must win game for the Rams.
That
Obviously,
being said, though, if you
it
drop
is
2 in a row
important.
on prime time,
yes.
it's a little embarrassing.
Yeah, especially after trading for Von Miller and trading for Odell Beckham. But I'm saying there's something weird about this game here. I do think that the Rams will come out on top, but I will not be shocked if the 49ers pull off of a magical win or even if they just squeeze something out. I do think it's going to be close. I think the Rams come out on top. And I think Odell has a solid game. I don't know how much he'll be used. I expect I think maybe for this week, I could be wrong here and I could just be speculating. This is pure speculation. But I think we're going to see more of an expanded role for Van Jefferson.
Yeah.
Just because he's used to the playbook. So I'm not sort of expecting Odell's breakout game to come tonight. But I think they'll use him in some favorable packages, get some end-around screens. I know that they'd like to do that with Robert Woods, those sort of end-arounds, those bubble screens. I think he'll get some targets. I want to say maybe a handful of catches, like 3-4 catches for, who knows, maybe he'll see a chunk play. I don't know if he gets into the end zone tonight. That's sort of where the playbook comes into matter because those red zone plays are a little bit more tricky. So who knows if he'll be caught up in time to sort of be an effective weapon in the red zone. But I think he'll have a solid night. Maybe not the night that a lot of people are expecting. Like, oh, Robert Woods gets injured, he's going to go for 100 yards. Yeah. He very well could, but I think it's just it's not sort of a favorable. He just got traded there on Friday or Thursday. Regardless, Thursday. Yeah. So it's the turnaround time. By the time he comes in past his physical, he's probably had one practice with them to learn a playbook in maybe 48 hours and go play on Monday night. It's just unrealistic to expect anything more, but it's going to be exciting. I know I'm going to be watching because it's Odell. It's still, I know I bash him all the time, but it's still right. It's a new team. You want to see how they fare. I think Von Miller might be playing tonight too. So.
I think realistically, you're probably dead on in the sense that it's tough for him to be crazy involved when he's still staying in a hotel in LA and he hasn't even gotten settled and all this. Your boldest prediction this week was that a tie is going to happen. My boldest prediction, I think, was Odell 10-plus catches, 150-plus yards, and 2 touchdowns. Who would have thought that a tie is going to happen and mine's not?
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to come close to that realistically. Now that I got my face and my voice behind the take, I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, he's going to go off. He's going to take over. If that happens, I'll gladly claim that I called it. But realistically, if I were to give you a realistic stat line, I'm going to say 5 catches, 57 yards, and no score.
Hey, we saw Ty get predicted today. If that stat line is true, I know we joke about putting the helmet on and jumping through the wall.
Yeah.
If that stat line, 5 catches for 57 yards hits,
lock it in. I want to actually look what his over.
We're gonna post a short on YouTube of putting this helmet on and just running through the wall, right? But let's also move because I want to make another fun prediction before we close this episode. The Detroit Lions. We thought that they were gonna get their one win this week. They had it. They had it. And I had 2 things. It was so I was so contradicted into what I was predicting, what I wanted to happen. I had the Steelers in Survivor, but I also had the tie. Yeah. And I'm like, if I'm going to lose my Survivor pick, at least let me go out by losing to a tie, right? Because I predicted the tie. But that Lions team, did Dan Campbell cry in his press conference yesterday?
I love how that's a question. Did he cry? Did he cry this week?
If I was putting out a line there, the way that they lost, I was putting Dan Campbell to cry minus 1,000. He probably did. We got to look back at it.
With what I saw yesterday, I don't know if this team's capable of winning an actual football game. That field goal, by the way.
That was the worst field goal I ever seen.
It's like he just sort of chipped it. He's like, you know what?
He almost missed the ball.
Let's take a little off it today.
That was the worst field goal attempt I've ever seen.
I might have to step in. Fun fact about me. I think you know this. I've hit a field goal at Ford Field.
Yeah.
Right down the middle. I think it was 22 yards out, but boy, did I drill it. Wow.
You drilled it all right. And look.
So
you might have to get signed.
I might not be here next Monday.
You might need to fill in.
So the Lions, it was a tough one. I've predicted a Lions win twice this year, and that's on From the Nosebleeds when we do the game previews, or I've at least alluded to a Lions win. The first time I did it, they got probably their worst loss of the season against the Eagles, blown out. And last time I did it, they tied. So always something weird happens when I say the Lions are going to win a game. But that's exactly what we're going to do right now. They've got what are they? 0, 8, and 1?
8 and 1.
So they've played 9 games. They've got 8 games left. Where is their first win going to come from? That's what we're doing today.
The Bears. They play the Bears in a few weeks. At home on Thursday night. I was looking because when you said that we were doing this, I'm like, I'm hot in my predictions right now. I gotta put some thought into this. So you look at the series. The Bears have destroyed the Lions as of recent. They're 7-1, dating back to 2013, and the 3-0 on the road. The Bears. But look, before that, Detroit dominated from 2013 to 2017. Detroit was 9-1 in that series, and look, there's no doubt about it. There's no beating around the bush. Detroit is the worst team in the league. No doubt. They're the worst team in the league. Yeah, they're...
No, you know what? If they play the Texans, I'm putting my
regardless, they're a bad team. But this is a divisional game. The Lions are going to be at home. It sort of has the recipe, obviously, on paper that it like could be their,
it's like that Broncos win
right.
over
It
the
could be
Chiefs.
that first W. Like they could sort of get into the win column there. And Dan Campbell's going to be all fired up because then you all prime time. But if I had to predict, I don't even know if they're going to win a game this year.
Wait, is that the Thanksgiving game?
It's Thanksgiving.
Oh, that would be something,
right? So it sort of has that weird recipe for sort of an upset win. I don't even know if it's going to. Yeah, it'll be an upset. The Bears will probably be favored by maybe 5-6 points, but maybe even more. But hey, if I'm throwing something out here, Detroit first dub. That's what I'm going to take.
So they've got the Browns next week in Cleveland, home against the Bears. That's your pick. Home against the Vikings, in Denver, home against the Cardinals, in Atlanta, and then a real tough 2 games to close the season in Seattle, and then home against Green Bay. So they need it at least by the time that they play the Falcons. I would say the Vikings, because I just said how the Vikings are this weird team, but I think the Vikings already got their quote-unquote loss out of the way against the Detroit because they really should have lost the first time they played them. I think they drove down the field in like 19 seconds and had a game-winning field goal. That was, to me, that's the low of all lows for the Lions to hit. That's worse than Tucker breaking the record. Yeah. Maybe not, but I almost want to say the Browns next week, but I think that's a little too premature because they got so close this week. They almost need to take a week off. All right, you know what? We got close to winning. Let's revisit the winning subject in about 3 weeks' time.
We'll go back.
I like them against Denver, but in Denver again, this whole Denver thing, I don't know if that's just in my head, but I don't. You know what? It has to be the Falcons, which I think is weird, but in Atlanta, it's a dome.
We're predicting Lions wins here. It's weird. It's a weird.
It's a weird segment.
Right?
The field goals in a dome, from experience, of course, as an experienced field goal kicker, I think their kicker will have a little easier of a time. So I like them. Against the Falcons. Sorry, Falcons fans, but you're going to be the one to go down.
We're predicting Lions wins here. That's what this show has come to.
Trivia segment. The year the Browns won one game, who did they beat?
I'm going to say Detroit.
No, it was the Chargers. It was the Chargers.
The Chargers. Hey, you never know.
I think they won anyways, unless they lost in overtime. But
you never know.
You never know, and that's the theme of the NFL. That's the theme of the show Sunday.
Hey, they could go. They could take the Browns next week. You never know.
I'm all for it.
You never know.
I'm a Lions fan deep down. So shout out to them. Shout out to all the Lions fans, because as a Dolphins fan, I know it's tough, but there is a light at the tunnel. Maybe not, because the Dolphins may have botched their rebuild. But that's going to do it all for today's show. If you made it to the end, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe.
All that fun stuff.
Let us know when the Lions are winning their first game in the comments. And if you don't think they're winning, and we'd love to hear that too. Anything else from you there, Kat?
Just like the video, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Comment below. We like reading our comments. And yeah, if you have any ideas for some future videos for us, don't hesitate to let us know. Had some fun this week.
All right, guys. Take care.
We'll see you guys next Monday.
We'll see you next Monday.
Peace, baby.